Look out now, it's time for Collection Connection, the game that exists solely as an excuse for me to talk about records. I play the game with my brother, Plastic Eric, who hosts his half of the game on his channel, the Plastic Soundwave Cult. And when I say with, I mean Eric and I are on the same team, because our opponent in this challenge is you. Every Monday, Eric presents an album from his collection that relates to the album I showed in my previous episode. And every Thursday, I find a new connection to a different album in my collection. And round we go, ad nauseum, ad infinitum. The hook is that we only hint at what the connection is between these seemingly unrelated albums, and if you want to best us for the week, you need to figure out what facet or quirk they have in common and leave that answer in the comments. On Monday, Eric showed the 1971 eponymous debut from the Welsh heavy trio, Budgie. That's a new one to me, so I've given it a listen, and I'll talk a little bit about what I thought of it. From there, I have forged a connection to the fifth studio album from the eclectic, genre-hopping indie rockers, Super Furry Animals, with Rings Around the World. Yet again, this is a connection with two layers of correctness. If you know a little bit about both bands, you might have already picked up on the broader version of that connection, but it can be tightened down a little further. A successful guess earns a shout-out in my brother's next video. But first, let's reveal the connection between the prior pair of albums, those being Budgie's Budgie and LCD Sound System's American Dream from 2017. And the connection is that both albums have a song about getting a haircut. More literally with Budgie, the song Rape of the Locks, which I don't know if just saying this song title is going to give me trouble, but is more literally about getting a haircut, whereas the song Emotional Haircut from LCD Sound System appears to be more of a metaphor and not a literal haircut. It's trimming back something unwanted, unnecessary. But with that said, I couldn't tell you if anybody got it. I am on a condensed timeline again, and if you're like me, you're going to be out of town on the day that your video is due. So I'm recording this ahead of time. I haven't even seen Eric's video yet, so I have no idea if anybody got a connection, but I feel confident that you did. So with that, let's get on with the show. All right, let's do this thing. See if we can get it done in under 10 minutes. Eric did talk about Budgie. It's a band that he has talked to me about a lot in the last few years. A band he discovered, I'm sure he will say in his video, through his father-in-law. I've heard of them, and it's funny, I always think of Budgie, the drummer from Susie and the Banshees, whenever he talks about them. And there was a time when I was vaguely aware of the band Budgie that I thought maybe was just Budgie solo projects. But no, they pre-exist Susie and the Banshees. They got together, I think, in 1968. And in 1971, they put out their first album that is heavy for the times. It's one of those things that, again, as time marches on, it's funny how something that may have been super heavy in 1971 just sounds like a groove with a little bit of stank on it to a 2024 audience. The progression of what is heavy has gotten so much heavier. That mostly the fact that these guitars are a little more plodding and thick in their riffs. I don't know, it's just pleasant. And I think the fact that the singer has just a natural singing voice. I found it not all that heavy, but I mean that as a compliment. It wasn't until kind of two of the last three tracks that I'm going to forget the names of felt more like proto heavy metal to me. But the first song, gosh, I wish I had looked at these song titles. Guts, it's called Guts, I think. Just sounds like a groove, to me. It doesn't sound all that heavy at all. It just kind of got got a little swagger on it. And so I thought it was good. A couple of songs a little more acoustic. And that's where the two of those last three songs, two of them sound heavy, and one of them is a little kind of acoustic palate cleanser going in the middle there. But yeah, not a super long album, not super proggy, really. It is in the vein, I guess, of early Black Sabbath, but yeah, they just never got the acclaim that some of those early metal type bands got, even though they hung around for a while. Don't know how their sound evolved. This is the only album I've ever heard from them, but yeah, I thought it was pretty easily listenable. It was enjoyable even. There's a super long song on there that I thought was a real highlight, kind of right in the middle, around track 4 or something like that. And so I've totally lost all the song titles, but I'm trying to get through this quickly. So going on from Budgie, I have connected it to Rings Around the World from Super Furry Animals. The original album came out in the UK in 2001 and in most places in 2001. It was their first major label album. They had done several albums for Creation. Their fourth album, all in Welsh, they were like, no. So that was released on an even smaller label, but accumulated interest got them signed to Epic Records. And it came out in 2001 there, and not until 2002 in the US. But the US version, at least the version that I have, the CD version here, came with a second disc. And it's got an additional 7 songs on it. So it's a longer album than what was released in the UK. Not quite a full double album, but a full album plus a pretty hefty EP on top of that. Of course, Super Furry Animals never really scored significantly in the US. They did okay, I think, in the UK, but they didn't rule the world there either. But I think this was agreed on as a highlight. It's one of the reasons that I have it. And funnily enough, I thought that I had misspoken last week when I said that American Dream LCD Sound System was named by Mojo Magazine as their #1 album of the year. When I looked, and I was like, oh, because I was in my reduced timeline, I was doing research on both records at the same time. I thought, oh crap, I said that about the wrong album. But no, as a little wild card connection to my previous entry, LCD Sound System, this also was Mojo Magazine's #1 album for this year, which I'm assuming must have been 2001, as that's the year that it came out in the UK. Now, sound-wise, I'm betting that Eric doesn't really know Super Furry Animals, and 2, that he'll groove on this. I feel probably more confident on this than a lot of things that I throw out there. They're super eclectic. They're all over the map, but their hearts seem to primarily be in the 1970s. So some of these have grooves not that dissimilar to the Budgie or singer-songwriters of the 1970s and full bands, but they full-on genre hop, and album and songs just change gears all of a sudden. I really enjoy No Sympathy, which is sort of like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young in its harmonies, even go into a little bit of Queen in the harmonies, so it feels like very much like a 70s, kind of folk song almost vibe that just 180s into like a Skrillex number at the end that it just goes wild. Similarly, one of my favorites, Receptacle for the Respectable on here, has about 4 different modes, and so it doesn't quite feel like prog rock because it's almost more extreme than prog rock, where it's not like it's just sort of changing gears a little bit. It just changes genres entirely, and sometimes they sound very Burt Bacharach, and like on I would say Juxtaposed with You has a big kind of sweeping arrangement that makes me think a little bit of Bacharach, and that's my other kind of favorite song from here that I think was a single, but very sing-alongy, and other times like on Receptacle for the Respectable. By the end, they're kind of in a doom metal saying "Receptacle for the Respectable," and it's kind of hysterical as they hit that point, considering the song that came before it. So I don't know if it's meant to be humorous, but it's hard to take it straight, I guess. But I enjoy it, and I had only really picked up on Juxtaposed with You and Receptacle for the Respectable. I said it right earlier, but Receptacle for the Respectable. So it was good to pull this out, and it makes me want to listen to the other one of their albums that I have, Radiator. They have, or had, at the time that this came out, a good portion of the Venn diagram of XTC fans, one of my favorite bands being XTC, had a lot of good things to say about Super Furry Animals at the time, which is why I checked them out in the first place. And it was almost a little too eclectic. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. And over time, every so often, I'll put it in, listen to it, and something new will catch my ear. But this was one of those times where it kind of threw out. I appreciated the eclecticism. I knew it was coming in. It is maybe a little long in the U.S. version with the bonus EP, so maybe Eric doesn't need to listen to that entire version, with the extra 7 tracks on it. But yeah, very idiosyncratic, very eclectic, very well produced. Like, kind of is one of those kitchen sink records. They just kind of threw everything at it. Critics seem to appreciate it. I think it did as well as any of their albums did sales-wise. And Rhys Davis. Gosh, I'm prepared for this video, but I think Rhys Davis is the name of the band leader there. Just looked it up. Apparently it's Gruff Rhys. So I was way off, but I had the Rhys right. It's one of those bands that came up, in the era where I had stopped reading music magazines, never seen pictures of these guys, never read articles about these guys. It was kind of all just on the music, and never got a feel for the artists or the names of the people in the band or anything like that. But I am aware that Rhys has continued, I think, to put out maybe some music since, I think, Super Furry Animals folded maybe right around 2010, and he puts out some solo work now. So I don't know a lot about him. I got Radiator. This makes me want to listen to that again because I appreciated this much more this time out as an album. And like a couple of the experiences I've had recently, pulling it out makes me go, gosh, why didn't this hit my ear better before? Because it seems to be hitting my ear just fine right now. So yeah, just another album to listen to throw into the rotation, to go, okay, yeah, that's pretty good. And if you think you can identify the connection that is shared by Budgie with their 1971 album Budgie, and Super Furry Animals with Rings Around the World from 2002, I will note that it is not album specific this time. There's 2 layers to it, but it is more about the bands themselves than about these specific albums that they put out. It is just truths about the band. So if you think you might know what that connection is, put it down in the comments. And on Monday, you'll get a shout out from Eric on his next video over on the Plastic Soundwave Cult. So it's that easy. I think that's all I got to say. So I thank you for watching. Bye-bye. Good show, Ponsonby.